Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So this is week 3 of the month, and that means in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group our prompt is Let's Get Arty, and I'll say a bit more about that in just a moment. I have here a piece of watercolour paper. It's around about 10.5 inches square or 26.5 centimetres square. I've made myself a small wet palette. I've recycled a piece of plastic, got bit of paper towel and a bit of grease-proof paper. What that's going to do is help my acrylic paints stay wet for longer. The colours I'm going to be using to begin with are this burnt umber. This is a Rowney graduate paint, and I'll put a list in the description box below. Also Rowney graduate in Paynes Grey. And you'll see I've just put them on top of each other, and I'm going to add some of this extender. It's a Winsor Newton Galeria extender, and all this will do is open the paints up a bit, and again will stop them from drying up quite so quick. To this I am now going to add some titanium white, and all I'm doing is making myself a background colour here that I'm just going to get down and onto my paper. I haven't used any gesso. In a sense I'm using this in place of the gesso. I just want some background colour down. So for the Let's Get Arty prompt, you can use whatever supplies you have, and you can do it on any substrate. It could be a journal page, it could be an ATC, a tag, you could paint on canvas, whatever. So here I've got some Reeves pale olive, and I'm just going to add a few colours to my palette. This is again a Rowney graduate in Indigo. Winsor Newton Galeria Process Magenta. I'm just getting lots of colours down here. I'm in the mood for working with lots of colours today, so just getting them all down here. This is a Reeves medium yellow. I'm just trying to get a good selection. Rowney System 3 Sap Green. Lovely colour paint this. If you like greens, I really love this. Very versatile green. And again I'm going to add some extender to these, but what you'll see me do next is just to mix one at a time with some of the extender, and I'm just going to start getting some of that down onto my page. So just explaining again about the prompt, Let's Get Arty, and you can use paints, you could use inks, bring out your stencils if you have any, your stamps, modelling paste, anything at all, whatever you want to use, and as I say, on any substrate. It's all about getting arty. So here I'm just using a small palette knife to mix the extender into the paint and then just getting it on. I'm in potential danger of creating some mud here because I'm not drying in between, but that doesn't matter. I'm just having some fun and getting colour down. You see when it goes, the yellow goes on top of the blue there, it is actually creating a bit of a green because it's mixing there on the page. And of course, because I've added the extender, they're going to stay wet for longer, which is exactly what I want. I want a little bit of blending to go on in the page. So just using my palette knife for the moment, but now swapping to a paintbrush. And again just using that same set of colours just to get paint down. And I'm trying here not to think too much about where I'm putting the different colours. Really all I'm doing is creating a background. I do get kind of fixated at one point about that top right hand corner. I like the way it's starting, and you'll see that at times I almost kind of avoid it. But what I do, this is where I started to think it was getting really interesting, but what I do later is force myself to go in and actually change that a bit. So here I've got some of my Carnival wet strength tissue paper, and all I'm doing is lifting the excess paint with that paper, and that will then become collage material in future. Just making some marks on the paper just now using my palette knife through the wet strength tissue paper, and you see there it's left some nice marks both on the paper but also on the substrate below that. So this is just all about getting colour down, making marks in there. And here I am just adding more paint, and I'll just keep this going until I feel I've added enough, and then I'll bring in some other things. So I have put this at double speed for part of it. Where the process gets very repetitive, I've put it at 4 times speed. But I've tried to leave as much of the process in. Here I'm going to start adding in some white, just swiping it there with a fan brush. Again, this is just about adding marks, just getting some interest down on the page. Taking a pencil, just an ordinary sketching pencil, and again, just making some marks. So for my project, yeah, there you go, having a cup of tea while I dry it off. For my project, I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, and that was to do a kind of abstract version of the tree that's outside my studio window. But I want it very much to be mixed media. So here I'm pulling out some collage. I've got an old drop sheet here, and I'm going to pull some pieces from it. You know, they always end up with interesting marks on them, things that in some ways you can't deliberately create, and I keep all of those and use them as collage. And now just tearing them into some smaller pieces. And now I'm just going to glue them down, and what I'm going to use here to glue is Winsor Newton matte medium. It could be done with a glue stick, it just depends. I sometimes find with a glue stick that over time they can start to lift a little, so where I'm doing this as part of a kind of painting, I would always use either a matte medium or a gel medium. So applying some to the actual substrate, but also to the piece of the collage that I'm going to put down, and then just going over it with my palette knife there, just making sure that there's a good bond between the two. So yes, as I was saying, I've got a rough notion that I want to do something with the tree that's kind of right outside my studio. I guess the colours I was using in the background there are quite kind of nature inspired in a way, although I wasn't thinking too much about that. I just wanted to get lots of colour down, and I suppose really I am working intuitively with this. Again with the collage, I'm trying not to think too much about where I'm placing it, although in some ways it's difficult not to stop and think, where do I think this would look best? And you see, avoiding that top right hand corner there, because there was something about that I really liked. But you know, I am going to come back and do some work over that, just to, sometimes we get too precious about pieces like this, and if you get too precious early on when you're creating a painting, you end up, I don't know, it kind of spoils the process in a sense. Obviously it's something that you absolutely love, then you might want to leave it, but I knew for me it was going to get in the way of whatever came next. And as I say, I'm trying to work intuitively, rough idea of what I want to do, but by the same token I want to leave it a little bit open to see what develops from this. So I've now got some stencils. These are from PM Artist Studio. I'm not looking to create fine stencil designs. This really is just about using these to get some more marks on the page. And using that process Magenta to get some brightness into the page here. And I'll use 2 or 3 of the stencils, get some marks down and take it from there. So you'll see as I go further through the process of doing this background that I will add some white to kind of knock it back in places. I then start to add more colour. I use my fingers to do more mark making. And I even use sandpaper to distress it in places, including over some of the collage. So I'm going to leave you for a few moments just while I work through the rest of this process, and then I'll be back to talk about the next stage. So you're rejoining me when this background page looks like a hot mess, but that's okay. You know, just wiping off the little bits of sanding that's still on there, just looking at it, feeling my kind of way through it, seeing where the tree might go, and there I spot a bird. As I said, the way I worked on this, I just wanted to see what showed up. I can see another bird in the top left there, so I can see where my tree, which is what I intended to do, is going to go through. So I'm just going to take this Derwent Inktense in antique white and just very quickly sketch in what I'm seeing. So I can see a bird there that I think is a crow sitting on one of the branches of the tree. So I'm just going to put the tree in, two kind of main branches coming out that these birds are sitting on. And I think this is a really great way to work. It's a bit like the ink blot paintings. I forget the technique. There's the other bird there, where you know, you take the ink blots and you see what you see. It's like cloud watching. You look at the clouds and what do you see? Here I'm just adding in a little birdhouse that dangles from the tree, and down here I suddenly saw this wood pigeon with its broad shoulders, and I have a lot of them in the garden and they wander about. So here I've got some acrylic paint, Turquoise by Hobbycraft, and I've also got a Reeves deep turquoise. So I'm just going to put some of this onto my palette as well, because what I'm going to do next is, I've roughly sketched in the shapes there. Also going to add some extender to this, but what I'm going to do is to paint the negative spaces. Now I have done some negative space painting before, so I will add that in. I'll also add in the video that I did with the kind of ink blot, that was hard to get out there, the ink blot kind of experiments that I did. So I've mixed up some blue that I'm going to use for the sky, and basically I'm painting the negative shapes or the negative space. So what this is going to do is to leave the shapes of the tree and the birds, but I'm painting the space around them rather than actually painting them. So you'll see now that a lot of that background is actually going to disappear completely. But it's still there, the texture's still there, some of the mark making will still show. And with this type of approach, you could leave one simple layer on and let lots of the background show through, or do several layers and almost block it out completely. So again, I'm just going to leave you for a few minutes while I do this. The sky will be mainly blue. I will do some green on the ground, just to differentiate between the two, blending it a little bit here and there. And this will really start to bring these shapes to life. And the background page, where it shows through for the tree, the birds, the tree house, the birdhouse, etc., that will be the real base of these particular pieces. So I will do a little bit more to them, but really all that background is going to show through for these pieces. So I do more of the sky and the grass off camera, and you'll see it really starting to come together here with the main tree and the birds, etc., showing through. Once I've done that, I dry it a bit, and then what I want to do is I want to take some of the flatness from the blue sky away. So I'm just going to add, using my fan brush, I'm just going to add some little bits of white and then just blend them in a little bit. It was just, to me, feeling just a little bit too flat. And then later on, off camera, I do add in a little bit of kind of yellow and green, just to help the kind of sky and the grass just kind of be a bit more reflective of each other. But all in all, I'm quite happy with the way this is coming together. And there you can see I've added in those colours. Now all I'm doing is taking some water on my brush, just trying to blend in some of that white Inktense. I'm now going to take the Derwent Inktense outliner. So this just looks a bit more like a kind of graphite pencil, and I'm just going to start to go around the various shapes, and this is just to bring a little bit more definition to them. Not essential, but I just kind of felt like doing that, and I kept it very sketchy, not doing a hard outline or a very deep coloured outline, just adding in some sketches here and there. And I'll do that to everything. So I'm seeing a crow there on the right hand side. I see a blackbird on the left hand side, even although it's slightly bigger than my crow. That's the way it is. So I'm now going to take some DecoArt fluid acrylic in Quinacridone Gold, and I'm going to take some water on a brush, just water this down a bit. This is quite a transparent colour, but I'm just adding some water to make it more into a wash, and I'm just going to go over my tree. What this will do is just to kind of unify it a little bit, and where there's some of the white paint, it will just add a little bit of colour to that white paint. Again, this isn't something that has to be done, because in some ways it's quite nice leaving things just as is, but today I just felt like kind of doing this. As I say, just approaching it very intuitively today, just seeing where the painting actually takes me. And of course this is very much a kind of semi-abstract, it's stylised, it's not meant to look like the actual birds or the actual tree itself, it's just semi-abstract. So in a moment I will also take some Dioxazine Purple, again the DecoArt fluid, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of colour to the birds as well. Not much at all, again just a very, very light wash of this, just to help unify the background of the birds. But you'll see with the blackbird, as I'm calling it, on the left hand side, you can still see that little bit of map showing through there. Here and there you can still see little bits of printed paper, you can still see some of the marks that I made. And this is a particular style that I really do like using a lot. So almost nearing the point where I will just add some finishing details, and I take it to the point where it felt finished and it was as much as I could do with it at this time. It's not to say that I wouldn't come back to it at some point in future. So again, just as a reminder, the prompt in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group for this week is Let's Get Arty. So just use whatever supplies you have. Nina will also have a video, of course, and I'll leave a link to her video below. And of course you're free to do something similar to what I've done here, or to what Nina does, or to do your own thing entirely. Just be sure to make certain that you say when you post your piece of work in the group what the prompt is. And of course you can go back and do previous prompts if you want. So I do hope you've enjoyed seeing this process. I really do enjoy doing the kind of negative space, doing that wild background to begin with, and seeing what appears. It's a fun way just to work through something, and without being too concerned about what's going to appear at the end of the day. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. If you've made it to this point, thank you ever so much for watching. If you like it, please do hit the thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber and you think you'd like to see more of this, then hit the subscribe button, and of course the little bell to be notified when I upload. I do upload every Sunday. So thanks so much everybody. Take care. Bye for now.